Hey everybody, and welcome to Death By, where contestants will earn reps for their arguments for a chance to stand on top of the podium pedestal. I'm your host, Lauren Kalil. Whoever I decide has the best argument through the final round will earn 30 seconds to talk about a topic of their choosing. On today's episode, we have two-time Affiliate Cup champion and seminar staff head trainer James Hobart, CrossFit Games reporter Nikki Brazier with Kettlebells and Cocktails, affiliate owner and CrossFit analyst Chase Ingram with Get With The Programming, and CrossFit Games athlete Tim Poulsen with Team CrossFit East Nashville Proven. Hey, let's play Death By. We are less than a week out from the CrossFit Games. We have some pieces to the puzzle when it comes to programming that we will see in Madison. We have a version of the benchmark Helen. We have a cross-country 5K, an Olympic weightlifting total, a gymnastics skills test, and a test with a Trek mountain bike. But with that being said, what movement has not yet been tested this season and should be tested at the CrossFit Games, and why? Chase Ingram, we will start with you.
Ooh, I'm going to say movement pattern and format, and I want to get below parallel and get deep into the pain cave while doing so. We have not really done that this year. We had 40 wall ball shots and a couple of thrusters in the open. We had 45 front squats with a handstand push-up was the problem anyways, and quarterfinals with some lunges sprinkled in there. And then in semifinals, we had 60 pistols. Yeah, there's a backpack on. Cleans, they were doing them in singles. It was the bench press anyways. Nothing really deep in that deep, dark pain cave did we have. And I want to do it by squatting below parallel, not with lunges, not on the bike. Let's just hammer the legs. The old school, like we saw the age groupers got to do, the callback of the open thrusters and row cows. That's the pain cave I want to see some athletes get into. Why? Because I'm not taking the test, and I'd like to see someone else get there instead of me.
Well, Tim, you're going to be taking some of these tests. Is that what you want to see, or what are some of the ideas that you have for programming?
Oh, I mean, I completely agree with Chase. I think that needs to happen. I'm glad I'm not taking the individual test anyway, but I'm sure I'd get my own dose. I'm actually going a different direction and adding a pseudo new movement. I think backwards handstand walking. We've done a lot of variations of handstand walks, pirouettes, up and down a ramp, all this other stuff. But if there's one thing that you can't bastardize, it's handstand walking backwards. You have to be absolutely positionally perfect and very well balanced in order to do it accurately and appropriately. And I think it would be a nice little wrinkle on a movement that we've been testing forever. We've been doing handstand walks since the beginning of time in CrossFit at semifinals, regionals, the games. And like I said, I think it would be a really unique twist. I don't think you would have to do anything other than, hey, walk backwards. You don't have to go over an obstacle. You don't have to pirouette in a circle. All you have to do is get into a good position and control your momentum in the opposite direction and say goodbye to all your favorite scorpion friends.
You can't be a scorpion when you do it that way. Nikki, what are your thoughts on this one?
You know, I would like to make an argument for devil presses. Again, because I'm not the one doing them, so I don't need to necessarily feel that pain. But I mean, it's a functional compound movement. It showcases speed, endurance, and strength while also demanding that those athletes really develop a solid strategy to avoid the burnout of all of their major muscle groups, including their cores. So they're sneaky in that way, like mentally. They're infinitely scalable. So we're showcasing a movement that anyone could do to a point in their affiliate. You know, they can do one dumbbell, they can scale down to burpees on a box or bench, but we can also scale them up to make a spectacle for the elite athletes by using super heavy dumbbells or maybe even making the burpees more interesting, who knows? And I also think that from a viewer standpoint, they're entertaining. Like athletes have been known to absolutely crumble under them before, but they've also been known to really put on a freaking show and blast through them like Sarah Sigmundsdottir at the 2022 Lowlands Throwdown. Like that was so fun to watch. So I don't have to do them. I'm making a case for them.
It's always better to be on this side when we're talking about programming and letting everybody else suffer. James, what's your take on this?
I totally disagree with him. I'm so over seeing people upside down. I feel like the opening quarterfinals, we've done wall facing and deficit and handstand walking pirouettes and all of this stuff. So I'd be happy to not see that at the games again. I think one of the things I would like to see, and a lot of people probably won't like this, is a sled push or a sled pull. I know we had the hand over hand pull, but I'm actually talking about like hands on the sled or sled directly attached to you. I think it's a really nice way to just test the application of your fitness. I know people out there say it has more to do with the lanes that matters, but it also is just a really beautiful example of the race, and everybody at the games absolutely loves the race. And then the second thing, because I'm biased, is I'd like to see application of strength in something that's really high skill, like a heavy dumbbell squat snatch. I think would be really cool. We've seen overhead squats, snatches at multiple weights and forms. But now let's see athletes put all that together with something that's really high skill. And we've seen that in the past. It's a cool movement, I think, to show their physical dominance. So that's what I'm thinking.
All right. We still have some time to see the full layout of programming and how many tests will be at the games. At the end of round 1, we have Tim leading the way with 4 points, Nikki and Chase tied for second with 3 points, and then James with 2 points. Plenty of time to make them up. On to topic 2. And speaking of programming, details were released about the Olympic total. Specifically for the individuals, the rules state that athletes will have 2 attempts at each lift, time cap 20 seconds per lift. Now, in a typical weightlifting meet, athletes would have 3 attempts per lift, but looking to Boz's programming at semifinals with the running snatch test, it seems that this theme is to lift quick and efficiently in a short, narrow window. So do we love it or hate it? 2 attempts per lift for the Olympic total, 60 seconds on the clock. Tim, I'm going to let you take this one because I think you have a strong opinion one way or another.
I hate this so much. I think especially if we're talking about making cuts to give programming opportunities and things like that, then maybe place this in a different place if you don't think you can get 30 athletes through with a more, I'm not going to say valid test, but put it in a different place in the weekend then, and we can think about how that affects programming later. But speaking from an athlete standpoint, 2 lifts is terrible. You only basically have a safe lift, and then you have either a pseudo safe lift or you shoot for the stars and end up with your starter. And especially when we're talking about being in corral for 15 minutes, sometimes platforms not being available, we're talking about testing both lifts, so you have to keep warm on both the snatch and a clean and jerk. I just think that 2 lifts, it just doesn't provide a good show. It doesn't let athletes showcase their true top-end strength. It doesn't give a good show for the fans because they don't see the crazy weights. They don't see guys going for PRs out on the floor. So I just think it takes away from the test. 3 lifts, please.
Okay. I do have some follow-up questions, but we're going to let everybody answer first, and then we'll come back to it. James, I'm going to let you tackle this one next.
Oh, boy. I guess it really depends how they put it together. I think I disagree a little bit with Tim again in terms of like you don't get to see athletes throw up the crazy weights, because we saw crazy weights go up in that 800-meter run heavy snatch test. I think, we had a young who snatched 215, and then we had some buzzer beaters on the guy side going over 300 pounds. So I don't think that's the case here. I definitely think you're going to see some athletes hit some exciting weights. And in my view, the most exciting event I ever watched at the games, and I think the games just reposted it, is when Tia, they did that 1 rep max clean. Tia went up and hit that clean on the platform, won the event, and the place went absolutely bonkers. So if I think they set it up in some way where they have 20 seconds, but it's like their time on the lift and only them, all eyes are on them, I think it's a really exciting, awesome event for the fans. Maybe I'm not thinking enough about the athlete here, but I think that's what matters. If they do it where it's like everybody has a spot on the floor and they're all lifting at once, it's a much less interesting event for me. So in that way, don't love it, but has the potential to be really cool and really exciting.
Nikki, love it or hate it?
Oh, man, love it or hate it. I'm sorry if my answer is kind of like neither. I don't have a huge preference. Like, I can totally see where Tim is coming from the athlete's perspective. I can also see the argument for doing 3 lifts by putting us on a much more similar playing field to other major sports like Olympic weightlifting. I mean, the sports that we ourselves are admittedly trying to emulate through CrossFit. I see the argument for 2 because it creates a lot of drama and a lot of stress, and it makes the stakes incredibly high. And from a viewer standpoint, that's really fun to watch. Like, I also think that maybe from a flow standpoint and a timing standpoint, it's nice when the events like move right along, and it's important that we have a really balanced mix of event lengths for both the athletes and the viewers throughout the entire weekend. So I'm sorry if I don't really get a lot of points on this one. I think, Lauren, I think you asked like a lot of really great questions, and we have a lot of solid discussions on this show. But from my perspective, like, either way works, I guess. I don't have a huge opinion on it.
That's okay, Nikki. No
You got
points, but you
0
bring up a
points.
lot of good points.
I award
That's
you no
okay.
points.
She's just floating in the middle here. Chase, I think you probably have a strong opinion on this one too. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's nice to know that there's one other sane person in this panel other than myself, and I'm speaking to Tim, is that it needs to be 3 attempts. This is a huge missed opportunity to connect with sports outside of our own realm at the CrossFit Games, and that is weightlifting. And when we look at 3 attempts and 3 attempts, I'm talking one shot. We don't need manufactured pressure for 2 lifts. If you've ever been to a weightlifting competition and competed in one, there's enough pressure knowing it's a make or miss, not multiple attempts in 20 seconds. And when James is talking about, yeah, we got exciting lifts in semifinals and we got great lifts in the platforms in 2019 and 2021, but they got 6 to 10 attempts at those lists to get those weights. Of course, it was super exciting. I think it's a big miss for just 2. And if it comes to schedule, figure it out. The people want to see a full-blown weightlifting test, and that's 3 attempts per lift. Big miss.
Okay, so follow-up question, but do we necessarily need that because we've tested it before? Or is this a separate test that's allowing athletes to see what can I actually hit in only 2? How high can I get to that 90-ish% threshold?
I mean, I can see, like, this is, like, you could make the argument that he's testing accuracy and coordination and mental fortitude to make smart jumps maybe. And, like, the adrenaline of competition goes a long way. But like I said, at the end of the day, unless you're, like, your first lift is going to be a safe lift, because even in the best case scenario, when you walk out onto the floor to hit your first attempt, it's probably been 10 minutes. So, like, asking any athlete to try and hit 90% on a very technical lift like a snatch after 10 minutes of not touching a barbell, can they do it? Yeah. And, like, you have 20 seconds. So if you could just deadlift the first one and then actually try it on the second time, I guess. But, like, I just think if you want to see the athletes in the best case possible and you want to see the biggest numbers possible go up in an event, you need 3 lifts.
But will we, for the individuals, knowing that the field will be cut to 30 by the time that they can do this, with fear that maybe some of the big hitters are already going to be cut?
Oh yeah, there's plenty of strong guys. I mean, there's plenty of strong people in this field, and I think, there's always surprises, like, as far as who makes the cut, who doesn't make the cut, especially in that, like, kind of bottom 10, who knows what'll happen with some of the rookies and stuff like that. I don't know. I think doing it kind of like a weightlifting meet where, like, you have openers, you go through the snatch. Maybe it's like everyone kind of goes through it on one platform, but, like, you call your openers and then the bar only ascends. So you have something kind of like a weightlifting meet where you end up with all your big hitters kind of towards the back. Maybe you have a warm-up area off to the side. I don't know. Like, we did the sandbag ladder. It felt like forever. I feel like we were cleaning sandbags for the better part of an hour and a half. So it's like, I think you could very easily make like, you could very easily make an evening out of this on Saturday night where it's like, hey, yeah, like, it's going to be like 45 minutes of snatching and then 45 minutes of clean and jerking, because we're going to do it in this cool weightlifting format. And, like, again, it could almost be like a mini weightlifting meet. Again, I'm not logisticaling the games or whatever the word. I'm not planning logistics here, but, like, I think it could be a cool idea anyway.
That would be cool. If they did that, I would want to see a warm up or a practice platform out on the stage, like out on the competition floor, out on the side. I want to watch everyone prepare and see how that goes as well. And I think that might add a different element of pressure to their even warm up lifts too, which Tim probably will hate. But as a viewer, I want to see it.
Well, I think when we're saying big lifts, I think the misconception is we all want to see the heaviest weight that anyone could possibly do. And when I think big lifts is I want to see the athlete's best foot forward for them. I want to see their biggest lifts. I don't care if it's 350 on a snatch for the men or if it's 315 or anything in between. It's like, I'm not worried about the one person who can lift more than everybody. I want to see the best performance possible from the athletes themselves. And I think you'll see a much better version of that with 3 attempts than you would with 2, not necessarily who is the strongest person there.
Yeah, that's a huge point, Chase. I think that's the reason why we all love those types of events, really, is because it's not necessarily, I mean, to a point, it's about the giant numbers because it's just fun to watch and it's crazy to see like what these humans can even do with their bodies. But it's also about like the athletes who put up numbers that you didn't expect because you know them and you know what their previous PRs were, you know what type of athletes. Maybe they're like smaller, faster athletes, but they're putting up really big numbers for them. Or maybe it's your favorite athlete who's had an injury and you know they're coming back from that and you watch them hit a lift, which means that they've like really overcome something. Like those are the real stories that we like to see with these types of events.
And I mean, like as an athlete, some of the coolest competition memories you could ask for are hitting a PR on the biggest stage. Like it doesn't really get better than hitting a PR on a lift in front of the Coliseum. Like that, I mean, it goes down in the memory banks forever. So I think giving the athletes the opportunity to do that, like Chase was saying, like set your personal best foot forward. Like you can't ask for more than the attempt to PR, like than an opportunity to PR on the biggest stage.
Well, time will tell. Maybe we'll still see some PRs. For now, Tim, you're PRing because you lead the way with 6 points after the second round. Chase trailing behind with 5. James bumped up to third place with 4. Nikki, again, great opinions, great
Just
ideas,
wait.
but you didn't really take a stance.
Just
So
wait.
one more
I'm
round
going to
to
come
do it.
back. Don't worry, I'm coming.
Here we go, the third and final round. In other CrossFit news, NOBULL recently announced that they sold the majority of their stake to sports drink entrepreneur Mike Repole. Now, if you read the comments on social media, most people seem upset because Repole has sold both his brand to Coca-Cola and fear that the same might happen to NOBULL. So where is the line from needing to team up with bigger sponsors and companies in order to grow versus staying within the CrossFit ecosystem, but having stagnant growth? 1 minute on the clock. James Hobart, I'm going to let you kick off this round.
Give me a minute 30. There's so much here. One, I don't think Coca-Cola is going to buy NOBULL. Just a hunch. I don't think it fits their portfolio. The other thing is like if you look at some of these larger companies, they own hundreds of other brands. And some of our favorite small brands that we love, you know, if it's like a niche sport, action sport, a brand we probably buy is probably owned by a larger company. So my point is the idea of a larger company buying a smaller one doesn't necessarily ruin it, destroy its culture or its community. But what it might do is bring more money and opportunities to athletes at events. And that's what's important here. I think this is something we need to remember is like we can have big companies and small companies in CrossFit. Big companies sponsoring events, smaller companies like the Jockos, O2 Hydration, Two Food, specifically sponsoring and supporting athletes. And look, we should support the companies we want to support. If you're worried about the big ones, then you know what? Go buy a G-Shock watch. You know, and I think it's that simple. We need to give more opportunities to events and athletes.
All right, Nikki, what are your thoughts here?
So I think that our community is so special and tight-knit that we feel like we have a lot of ownership over products and brands and even people who are sort of like born within our space. And pushing the boundaries of that is scary because it can really feel like we're losing a part of ourselves and our identity, which sets us apart from the rest of the world, right? Like those outsiders who don't know and don't get us and eat sugar or drink Coke or whatever. Like that's not us in our community too. But I think the reality is, and what we need to remember is that number one, like growth is good because in order for us to stay alive as a company in this economy, we need to grow and we need to become more of a household name. And also in order for us to fulfill our mission of becoming a healthier planet, we also need to grow and become a household name. And two, we don't know what's going to happen. Like we don't know that he's going to sell it at all. Normally, when an investor like this buys in a majority share to a company that does have growth projections already, not a failing company, there's an element that suggests something about that investor wanting to stay with the company, help grow it, not necessarily purchase and flip it right away. So we'll have to see.
Good points. Chase, what are your thoughts?
I love what James talked about earlier is like people get hyper focused on what this small company is and the big fish trickle up effect of who really owns these brands. I think it's somewhat hypocritical when you type it on your iPhone about this is the bad product to use for the CrossFit Games. And when you look at what NOBULL is doing and someone coming in to present that, I get it. We need to have more money making opportunities for the athletes of the sport if we want to grow professional. We need to have more money infused in the sport to make it grow professionally. That doesn't necessarily mean it needs to trickle down into the CrossFit community itself. I know Monster was a huge thing that came on the scene a couple years ago. And there's a reason why they're not around anymore, because CrossFit does understand the optics of the people that they partner with. And the things that I like to see is these smaller things, as James was talking about earlier. The Jocko, G-Shock is now a part of the CrossFit Games and a partner for a lot of affiliates. And if you've been an OG, there's nothing better than having G-Shock being a part of that. So I'm not obsessed with making more money for the sport as long as we stay true to our identity as a community.
All right, Tim, bring us home. What are your thoughts on this one?
I mean, I agree with everybody else. Our ecosystem is only so big, and CrossFit's only going to go get so big if we stay purely within the confines of like companies born in CrossFit. And I think, like Chase mentioned, it's important to stay aligned to kind of like the core values of CrossFit, who we are, who we want people to view us as the brand gets bigger. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of money out there that is interested in high growth sports. So I think every step in the right direction where there is more money in the space, there's more money in the sport, that's going to bring more eyes. And making assumptions about, what this guy has done in the past, he sold brands to Coke. I mean, like, again, who cares? This is a completely different project. Like, that doesn't necessarily mean there's a track record here that he's looking to sell NOBULL to Coke. So I think at the end of the day, it's more money in the ecosystem, and we're going to have to, if the athletes want to grow, if the sport wants to grow, and if the community wants to grow, we're going to need to partner with brands that are not endemic to CrossFit. And I think that's a great thing. Who can't wait to see the official truck of the CrossFit Games in a couple of years?
At the end of the final round, Tim, you skirted all the way ahead to be our winner. That is now going to the podium pedestal. But I have one suggestion. Can you please put your blue light blockers on for your final 30 seconds?
Do it.
This is going to have to get clipped and sent directly to Andrea and Taylor down in Nashville, because they will make fun of me the entire time. This is already immediately going to be a highlight reel. What's up, everybody?
I love it.
Who's that?
All right,
right
Tim.
there?
30 seconds, a topic of your choosing while rocking the nice glasses there.
All right. On the bright side, my eyes feel great in all this natural light, or not natural light. I guess I'm going to stand on the pedestal and rant, or I can rave or whatever, for a new implement to come to the CrossFit Games. I feel like it's been a couple years since we saw Rogue come out with something new, something cool, whether it's the snail, during the Chaos event, things like that. We haven't seen a new implement that kind of, I guess, threw the athletes for a loop in a little while. And I think part of that is why we go to the CrossFit Games and why we love it so much, is to have those kind of really unique tests of fitness and grit and kind of figuring it out on the fly. So I'd love to see something new from Rogue this year, or at least kind of see that make its way back into the Games programming, because it seems like we've kind of been lacking in that respect, or maybe even using an old element that we've only used once again. I think it would be really cool. So that's my shout out for programming the Games this year.
Well, congratulations to Tim Poulsen. Maybe this is just the first of the beginning of your trek onto a podium. In just about a week, we kick off the CrossFit Games. Thank you to Tim, Chase, Nikki, James. I will see most of you guys in Madison. And for everybody watching, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, Instagram and YouTube channel. You will find all of our coverage throughout the full week of the CrossFit Games on there. And we hope to see you in person. From everybody at Talking Elite Fitness, I'm Lauren Kalil, and we'll see you next time.